Geoff, there are just so many options at wide receiver when you look up and down the board for the week 1 slate, and that includes the very top of the board with 9 wide receivers, all at 7K or higher. So who's your favorite play out of this high-priced group?
Yeah, when you look at this group, obviously it just feels like any one of these guys could go off for 30-plus points, especially in week 1. But for me, Jesse, my favorite play is going to be Calvin Ridley at just under 8K, 7,900. It's a player who was 7th in targets last year. Averaged just under 10 targets per game, and now you've got Julio Jones leaving the situation. You just feel like Calvin Ridley, the targets are just going to be an absolute explosion this year, just from that perspective. But you also have a team in Atlanta and Philly in this matchup in week 1 where they're both top 10 in terms of pace of play last year. Philly, in terms of corners, their highest rated corner in Pro Football Focus was Stevie Nelson at 36. This is not a deep cornerback crew at all. If anyone gets hurt in game, this could just be an absolute drubbing. So for me, the matchup, when you take everything into consideration, it's Calvin Ridley here. I think this going up against this Eagles secondary, it's going to be a real good week 1 for him.
All right, Matt, what do you think? Plenty of guys to choose from. 9 wide receivers, all at 7K or higher. Who's your favorite play?
So I'm actually going to pick the same player, and I think the reason that I like him is a bit different, though. It's a lot of it is because the Falcons should have some popular players across the board at a bunch of positions. Mike Davis could be a pretty common spend down option at running back, and then you have Kyle Pitts at tight end. So I think there's a bit of leverage with Ridley where he would negatively correlate with those other guys on his team. And if the ball is just being funneled to Ridley throughout the game, which could happen just because of how good he is, maybe he's open, Pitts doesn't get as involved. And if you don't play Kyle Pitts in your lineup, I think Ridley is a way to have some more security that there's actually a reasonable path to Kyle Pitts not doing well. Not to say that this isn't a full team stack that can't do well, but I think playing Ridley instead of Kyle Pitts, and also in a spot where a lot of the field will probably have cheaper wide receivers, I think paying up in general makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of good choices here, but I do think Ridley, for that reason, might be a bit better of a choice than some of the other guys at the high end of the salary range.
Reid, which high-priced wide receiver are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of a Geoff Ulrich here and mention a few guys, but only hone in on one. I think the Tennessee receivers are viable, absolutely. I think you can pay down for Julio. I think when you talk about both of these guys in that high-powered matchup, it's going to be nice. I think Justin Jefferson also, too, is someone that you can definitely take a look at. But give me DK Metcalf. I talked about Russ Wilson earlier. I love DK Metcalf in this spot. If you look at the games that Russ Wilson threw for over 300 yards, Jesse, and it was weird. Weeks 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 were those first 5. So all odd weeks. He scored over 20 DK fantasy points on average. And one of those weeks was against Arizona, where he only put up 4.9 DK fantasy points. This guy's an absolute monster. When Russ Wilson has a plus matchup, he looks at DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett is fine, but give me the touchdown upside with a guy like DK Metcalf. I think they get started very early.